Chapter 113, The Parasite, Hanyu's POV. A sow stopped screaming and thrashing and went limp, and it was the worst thing Hanyu had ever seen. I did this. I made Marcus angry with all my mouthing off. His torch hit the ground as he flew at the big god and pounded ineffectually at his arm, desperate to make him let go of the rope before a sow choked to death. It was like beating a tree, but Hanyu went on doing it as the torch sputtered wildly, making the world flicker around him. "Let him go!" he screamed in Marcus's ear. "Please, you're killing him! Let him go!" Marcus turned and smiled at him, sweet and dimpled. Without a word, he opened his hand and let the rope fall. A sow hit the ground with a sickening thud. Hanyu scrambled to his side and yanked at the rope, doing his best to loosen it. He shuddered with overwhelming relief when he saw his friend's chest rising and falling. "Breathing! Alive! Oh gods, he's alive!" The fallen torch guttered, not quite extinguished. In the erratic, flickering light, Hanyu's eyes kept moving back to look at the bloody ruin of a sow's face. It didn't feel real. None of it could possibly be real. And yet, a heavy, cold hand settled on Hanyu's shoulder in a sick parody of comfort. It was, he realized distantly, the first time Marcus had ever touched him. "This is what happens when you try to steal from a god, little one," Marcus purred. "Please don't hurt him anymore," Hanyu cried, swiveling so he was between Marcus and a sow. "I'll do what you want, all right?" "Of course you will," soothed the god. "I won't let you do anything else. You need direction, don't you? A strong hand, punishment. Slaves who don't know their place always get punished." "Please don't," Hanyu managed, trembling. Where had all of his defiance gone? Now that the god's attention was off a sow, he couldn't seem to find that angry spark that had let him speak so bravely before. Now he just felt terrified and very, very small. "And you've been forgetting your place quite a lot lately, haven't you?" Marcus went on, as though he hadn't spoken. "You've been getting above yourself. You think we don't know what kind of arrogant delusions you've been indulging?" "I want him to love me." Had it been so obvious? Did everyone know about Hanyu's presumption? Did Lord Antony? Even in the midst of his terror for a sow and himself, Hanyu couldn't help shriveling at the awfulness of the thought. "Tell me, little Hanyu, what exactly do you think is so irresistible about you that it could tempt a god? Is it your perfect obedience, your flawless grace and beauty, your dazzling intellect?" I didn't... Oh gods, what if they all thought that? Did Lord Antony and Lord Theodora also wonder how Hanyu had the gall to think he was worthy of a god's love? How ridiculous he must seem to them. "Tell me," Marcus prompted, his tone still so kind. "Tell me what it is about you that you think is so special it will make Lord Antony fall at your feet." "Nothing," cried Hanyu. I don't think that." Marcus tisked softly. "You said you'd do what I told you, and I'm telling you to answer my question. Do you think you're so much more beautiful than any of his previous attendants that you can tempt him that way?" "No," sputtered Hanyu. "I know. I saw Edgy. I know I'm not. It isn't that." "That's good," the god nodded. "I'm glad to see you're not totally delusional. He's had hundreds of men more beautiful than you by far, so you would have to be unhinged to think there was anything special about your appearance. And I won't insult my own intelligence by asking if you thought you could charm him with your ready wit. Surely even you aren't too dull to realize that the average cactus would have a decent chance of outthinking you." "Don't be stupid, boy. Of course you're not stupid." It had never been true, but even now Hanyu yearned towards the memory of those undeserved words, those generous lies. I'm poor, stupid Hanyu after all. What then? Continued Marcus. Do you think that you're distinguishing yourself with your behavior? Do you think your constant disobedience is cute, endearing? You've caused him nothing but stress and pain with all your nonsense. It's hardly a selling point. Hanyu squeezed his eyes shut to block out the sight of the disapproving parental frown on Marcus's face. I never meant to cause trouble. You can't even give him a break tonight, of all nights, Marcus said sternly. He just found out that his little brother is a drooling vegetable, can't move or even speak. Oh no, was that true? Of course it was. Why would the god bother lying to him now? Hanyu's stomach clenched so hard he pressed a hand against it, as if that would help keep its contents down. Marcus went on speaking. You should have seen the look on Antony's face, little one. He just stood there and stared like he was looking at the end of the world. He's devastated and totally helpless to do anything about it. He should have been able to count on coming home to a good, obedient attendant. But what did you do? You disobeyed him and ran off without a single thought for his feelings. Did it even occur to you that he might need comfort tonight? How could you think that this kind of disgusting selfishness could possibly be charming? No. Hanyu opened his mouth to plead or protest, but all that emerged was a broken little sob. You're nothing but a parasite, the god continued, calm and pitiless. You're a stupid, weak thing that could never survive on its own, so you find a stronger host. You cling to him, you fill his days with your endless demands for his attention and affection. You weep and carry on whenever he shows the sense to try to pry himself loose from you, and you offer nothing in return. You moved from Asau to Antony in a single leap, and then you burrowed in like a tick to start the cycle all over again, to take and take until you could drain him dry. The words seemed to echo through Hanyu's head, the sharp rocks under his knees, the contrast of chilly wind and hot tears on his cheeks, and the constant rumble of the sea all seemed very far away, leaving nothing but Marcus's voice. It was all true. On some level, he'd always known it. It felt accurate in a way that none of his master's kindly admonitions ever had. I'm bad. I've always been bad. There's a weakness and rot inside of me that's been there since I was a child. The priests saw it. They tried to fix me, but no matter how much they punished me, I stayed bad. And now Marcus can see it too. How many times had various priests told him that they only kept him around for Asau's sake? How many indulgences and courtesies had he received on this ship because he belonged to Antony? A friend, a master, a host. He had used them in exactly the same way. It was just as Marcus said. The god sneered down at him. It's a pathetic display. I could almost pity you if it weren't for the pain and ruin you leave in your wake. I'll be doing both of them a favor by tearing you loose and crushing you underfoot. Lord Marcus picked up the guttering torch and nudged Asau's limp form away with a foot. Then he began circling Hanyu, peering down with an expression Hanyu couldn't make out through the constant flow of his tears. There are lots of old folk remedies for parasites, the god mused. Burning, cutting, drowning. I think I'm going to have to experiment. Only once the creature is dead can we start drawing out the poison. It's best for everyone this way, don't you think? Hanyu tried to get to his feet, to run, but the god shoved him back down without even breaking his stride. The power in his hand was irresistible, implacable, like a mountain pressing Hanyu down to his hands and knees. All he could do was sob and quiver and frantically shake his head. No, no, please, no. Selfish to the end, Marcus tutted, and through his tears Hanyu could see something glinting darkly in the god's hand. Help! He tried to shout, but he was crying too hard to get any real volume. Please help! Marcus sighed, disgusted. Is that the best you can manage? This really will be a mercy kit. Hanyu! The cry from the darkness was so choked with panic that Hanyu didn't recognize the speaker at first. There was a blur and a breeze, and then a small figure was standing over them, looking between Hanyu and Marcus and back again so quickly that his long silver braid jerked around like a fishing line. Antony! Marcus! He cried, sounding startled and incredulous. What are you doing here? What's going on? It had to be a dream. He couldn't be here. Surely nothing Hanyu wanted so desperately could be real. But it felt real when Antony crouched before him and took his face between icy hands, so close that Hanyu could smell the sea on him and see it dripping from his sodden clothes, so close that he could see the wildness and dawning anguish in his master's eyes. Where are you hurt? The god demanded, pressing his fingers more firmly against Hanyu's tear-soaked cheeks. Where... You're not bleeding. Why are you crying? Where's all the blood? I can smell it. If you're not hurt, what happened? Someone, please, Marcus, why do you have your knife? What happened? Annie. Marcus's voice was low and pleasant, almost chiding. You're soaked, darling. What are you doing here? I heard screams. I heard, oh gods, that's a sow. Antony whirled from Hanyu and hunched over the silent huddle. He's breathing. He's bleeding so much. What happened to his face? Marcus, fuck, please tell me this wasn't you. His voice was practically a keen, growing higher and wilder with each syllable. By the end, he sounded like an animal, like the ritualistic wailing that accompanied a priest's funeral. Hanyu was still paralyzed with terror and sobs, but even so, he longed to put his arms around his agonized god. Annie, you're hysterical. Marcus's tone was so gentle and reasonable that for an instant, even Hanyu felt a flash of relief that someone was calm enough to handle the situation. I need you to settle down so we can talk about this. Oh, gods! Antony went on checking a sow over, hands moving carefully and methodically in the torchlight, but his voice continued in a high, tight chant. Oh, gods! Oh, gods! It was you! Oh, gods! You did this, Marcus! Oh! It doesn't matter, Marcus soothed. Darling, you can't act like this about a few humans. I'm sorry for tampering with your things. I know that was wrong of me, but they're only humans. Stop talking! Hanyu couldn't be sure whether his master was commanding or pleading. Either way, Marcus did not comply. Annie, darling, you need to calm down. I said I was sorry. I'll take my whipping like a good boy and... A whipping won't fix this! Antony's eyes were so wide, the whites flashed as he went on cataloging Asau's injuries. You were going to kill them! You tried to kill them! Oh, gods! Oh, Marcus! Nonsense! Marcus went to crouch in front of Antony. You're being ridiculous. A whipping is the penalty for touching... You mutilated him, Antony wailed. You were going to kill them. I saw the knife. You were going to kill Hanyu. Hanyu! I'm not going to stand here and take these wild accusations, Marcus said sternly. We can talk about this calmly, like adults, or... When Antony launched himself into Marcus's chest, shouting something in the god's language with his fangs flashing, Hanyu didn't know who was the most startled. But Marcus was startled enough to drop the torch, and this time it guttered out. Hanyu was left to listen to the fight unfolding in total, obliterating darkness.